This is the Throstle Club with Norman Bartlam and Bob Downing. Well, hello and welcome to the Throstle Club. It's the programme which looks at the long and illustrious history of West Bromwich Albion, and we interview former players and current supporters about their memories of our great club. Now, as usual, Bob Downing, the ex-Sports Argus man, who's got an excellent form rate so far, except for when it comes to quizzes, is with us here today. Hello, Bob.
Hello, Norman.
And opposites, still twiddling?
Yeah.
I think,
I've been twiddling all the time you've been away, mate.
Billy's been practising twiddling whilst I've been away in Germany. More of that later. And our special studio guest today is Dean Walton, a well-known Baggies fan. And his latest book about supporting West Bromwich Albion is out now. It's a great book because I'm on the cover, Billy.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And how did you do that?
And I'm also on the back.
I tell you what, Bob, he's the biggest ear roller in the bloody world, I tell you.
So that's a very good reason to have Dean with us here today, I think. Hello, Dean.
Hi, Norm.
Right, so there we go. So we've got plenty to talk about in this edition of the Throstle Club. And as always, the great West Bromwich Albion choir from the Bromley Road there brings us into this, the August 2024 edition of the Throstle Club. So let's start, Bob, by talking about some of the things that have been in the news of late. And of course, we can't really not start without mentioning Craig Shakespeare, who sadly passed away recently.
Yeah, I mean, you've only got to look at the social media when it was announced by his family and then by various other outlets. The highest regard that people had for Craig, both as a player, as a coach, and importantly as well as a human being. There are a lot of people on social media were saying what a good player he was, what a great coach he was. But the thing that came out was his personality. He was close to his players. He seemed to know exactly what they wanted to do, and he was a great shame. Unfortunately, I wasn't there when he was playing because he was under our dealers, and I'd already gone horse racing then. But I know from the lads who covered Albion that how much they thought of him, and certainly a lot of people were delighted, not only when Leicester won the Premiership, but because he was coach with Claudio Ranieri and played a significant part in it.
Yeah, of course, he's got good memories. So lots of people across the West Midlands, because it wasn't just West Brom that
That's right.
Obviously he was with, because he started off at Walsall, I think, didn't he? Had 280 odd games for them.
Yeah. But he seemed to have this. No matter where he went, he had this sort of personality, and got on so well with other players, and seemed to know what they were thinking, and could generate them and give them plenty of enthusiasm. Maybe if things weren't going right. So, and to that age, that's no age.
Was that 60, I think, wasn't he?
60, yeah.
60, yeah. Dean?
Yeah, I sort of knew him vaguely. He's from Great Bar, the same place as me. And I think we last met up with him in Hong Kong, pre-season with the Albion, when he was actually managing Leicester. And he was in the hotel foyer with the Albion players and the Leicester players. And yeah, he was a smashing bloke. And we later had a coffee with him in Lichfield. You know, all the time in the world for everybody. Nice bloke, very sad.
Yeah, very, very sad indeed. So there we are. Craig Shakespeare has passed away at just the age of 60. Now, somebody who's doing really well and ageing as a footballer in his late 30s, almost 40 now. Fantastic bit of trivia about Curtis Davies that not many people seem to have come across. That between our last programme and now, he's become the oldest player ever to score on his competitive debut for the country, because he scored for Sierra Leone, would you believe, in a victory against Djibouti. He's playing for them because although he's from London, I think, his dad was born and raised over there in Sierra Leone, so he played for them. So, which is an amazing record, isn't it? But I know he did play.
That'll be a quiz question soon, won't it?
Could well be, yeah. Remember that for the future, yeah.
He just announced his retirement.
Yeah, he did play in some under 21 games for England, but he was called up by Capello to the main England squad, but he never actually got to play, so it made him available to play for his dad's side.
Yeah.
So that's a great little story, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yep. The other big story at the moment, of course, was England at the Euros. Now, I was lucky enough to be there to see most of the England games, including the game at the final, and that was absolutely fantastic to be over there in Germany. So what was it like watching it on TV over here, Bob?
Boring.
Well, yeah, most of the time we spent behind the sofa.
And what about during the matches?
During the matches, I think you went through every emotion. You went from what the hell's going on here, and brilliant, it's coming home, that sort of thing. You had those two extremes. I don't know what to make. I mean, I've got certain things that I couldn't understand with the tactics. I'm not a football man. Oh, yeah, well, I am a football man, but not in that same extent as Gareth Southgate and some of the others. The one thing that just baffled me completely was that he took a gamble on Luke Shaw. The gamble eventually came off, but I can't see how you can play a recognised right back at left back, because every time that, no matter how well he played at right back, who was playing right back? Yeah, what a memory.
But bloke from Newcastle played left back.
Trippier, wasn't it?
Trippier, that's him, Trippier.
Yeah.
Every time we were on an attack, it went out to him. He had to control it. He had to control it with his right. And if you're playing at left back and you're right-sided, it's going to go one of two ways. It's either going back or it's going sideways.
Yeah.
So it was unfortunate. As I said, we had the lows and the highs, and it was unfortunate in the end. And I suppose really, I mean, Gareth had said he was going to go, and he did, and I was surprised how quickly he went.
I think he made his mind up before he went.
I think he probably had.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting now to see who takes over, because it seems as though there are certain people, certain managers who are using the fact that they have been associated with the possible of becoming England manager to try and have a go at the clubs that they're in and try and get a little more.
That's inevitable, I suppose, really, isn't it? I suppose Eddie Howe is the best example of that.
Yeah. So, but we'll just wait and see. It's a new chapter. I'm just reading a book at the moment by Paul Hayward called England, about the England football team, and from 18 odd till 2022, and it's amazing. So the job what the job is. Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of people ought to read that book, and they'll see what the job is.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that people like Eddie Howe, we think, will probably miss the day-to-day being with the players if becomes England manager. But even said that, as you're suggesting, it's still a full-time job being an England manager. There's so much to do that you don't see, that the public doesn't see, I suppose.
It's amazing, this book. I mean, it was Alf Ramsey who got the FA to agree to having the players together. You know, like they got the international break now, because he said, what's the point? I only see him 7 days. Yeah. And he can't work out anything. It's a fascinating book, this Paul Hayward book, and I'd recommend it to anybody.
One of the interesting things about it's only in recent years, of course, that matches have been set aside, as you say, for the international break, because normally league teams were penalised in effect if they got England players. Yeah. In the days when Kevin and Howe, Bobby Robson played for the Albion, you could have 2 or 3 players missing because they were playing for England that afternoon at Hampden Park against Scotland or something. And so that would have hampered your side. And
there was also the times, I mean, where they were picked for England, even with the international break, they were picked for England, and all of a sudden they picked up hamstring injury, or they got a back strain, or they got a calf injury, and they can't play on the Wednesday, but they can play for the club on the Saturday.
Didn't it happen in the 1957 FA Cup semi-final against Villa? I think the second leg we were without Ronnie Allen and Johnny Nichols, weren't we? Hadn't they been called up for
I
England?
think that's right. They were playing. Were they playing against Scotland?
I think so.
Oh, and that was the semi-final
FA
day,
Cup
was it?
semi-final.
That just proves my point, doesn't it, what we were talking about? It's amazing. So we have made a bit of progress in that respect. What about you, Dean, then, from watching this year's matches? What were your highlights?
I was very envious of you and the gang out in Germany. It looked good. But the football, I'm not and never have been a Gareth Southgate fan, and it's far too much like Tony Pooley's football for me. You know, sideways, backwards, which is fine when your team's not very good. But with the players he's got at his disposal, we should be destroying teams, I think. So yeah, it was hard to watch. There was a bit of emotion at the end when we normally scored a last-minute equaliser or winner or something. But overall, disappointing in the end. I think
Of course,
once again we didn't win anything.
Yeah, I suppose for those of us that were there, wrapped up in the atmosphere of the game's absolutely fantastic. The first two games, perhaps there's a bit of negativity, especially towards the end of those games, when we were perhaps struggling. Was it Denmark, then Slovenia we drew. But after that, the atmosphere seemed to change and everybody got behind the team. And I think that even energised Southgate a little bit, and he was a little bit more creative perhaps towards the end. But you still got your flair players like Foden that weren't allowed to express themselves enough, which is one of the reasons perhaps why Grealish wasn't taken, isn't it? Because with a flair player like that.
You're saying about the atmosphere and what have you. I had a bit of a medical problem, and I was in the hospital. I was at the daycare centre, the day emergency place at Samuel and Dudley Hospital, and West Bromwich Hospital, and there was quite a few of us in there, and they got the television set on, and they were showing the match, the penalty. We won the penalty shoot at the semi-final, quarter-final, and I said to my wife, I said, "You watch. As soon as the penalty shootout starts, they'll call me into the clinic." And sure enough, just as the first penalty was about to be taken, somebody came out and said, "Robert Downing," and I said, "I told you." And the doctor followed her out, and he said, "It's all right." He said, "Watch the penalty shootout first." And half the staff come in.
Really?
To watch the penalty shootout. And as soon as the penalty shootout was finished, right, everything was back to normal, The needles were coming out, the drips were going on.
That's a case of not giving blood for England for 20 minutes, isn't it? Yeah. There was a great bit of trivia in that Slovakia game. We won 2-1, didn't we, with a goal right at the end. And it was Bellingham scored, wasn't it? 5th minute injury time. So that goal was in the 95th minute. Then extra time started, and Kane scored in the first minute of extra time. So that counts as the 91st minute in the statistics. So we scored our first goal in the 95th minute and winner in the 91st. So that's a fabulous bit of trivia, isn't it? Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, and we won a penalty shootout.
Yeah, we're a bonus.
They were great penalties. They were really good penalties.
Germany-esque, weren't they?
Yeah.
So it was just amazing to actually be there to see.
But how you can take a penalty and not look at the ball, I don't know.
Amazing.
Just con the goalkeeper, wasn't
it? Yeah, absolutely stunning. Now, there's various times there was up to a dozen of us in our group, all our Albion fans. There was a hardcore of 4 or 5 of us, and on our way back, I spoke to some of the fans, those Albion fans, good mates of mine, which I'd not met before. A couple of them, Dan and Darren Meredith, and also Tony Dudley, and we sat down at the airport in Berlin as we were waiting for our delayed flight to come back to Birmingham, and this is what they had to say.
British Airways, Flug BA9.
As you might be able to tell, we're in the airport departure lounge at the moment. So, what are your memories of the tournament then, Tony?
Well, for me, it's the atmosphere, the crowd, the camaraderie, and all the fans, the anticipation before the games of what's going to happen. And then you look at some of the games that we've done with the late goals, the Bellingham overhead kick, the Saka from outside the box, and of course the Watkins goal all at the end. And what's a better time to score than the end of the game? Absolutely brilliant.
So the highlight for you then, Dan, was an Aston Villa player scoring for England?
Yeah, unfortunately it was. That Ollie Watkins goal has to be my highlight of the tournament. Just the scenes in the crowd after, it's absolute limbs. And Yeah, it's a shame he plays for the Villa, but if he can come up with moments like that, I don't mind it. I'll let him off for a day or two.
Indeed, yeah. So apart from Ali Watkins, what's your other highlights of the matches?
Second has to be the penalty shootout in the Swiss game. I was lucky enough to be there, and just the scenes after the game outside with the fans singing whilst the sun was going down behind the stadium. Yeah, it's something I'll remember for a long time.
Yeah, for people that weren't there, you can see it on the TV, but there's no way that you can really describe it, is there, being there?
No, it's completely different watching it in person. I mean, it hits way harder. Scoring 5 perfect penalties, obviously England's history in penalty shootouts isn't great. So, yeah, to be there to witness that was just incredible.
And what about you, Dara?
Several highlights. I mean, the biggest highlight is obviously attending a tournament that we reached our first final on foreign soil with my son. That was unbelievable, and to be together when we scored that goal in the final was fantastic. But one of the things that sticks in my mind more than anything is being outside the Dortmund ground and being wowed by the surroundings of it, and how immense it was. And then all of a sudden this humongous grey cloud appearing over the top of us, and us all thinking, oh no, this is doom and gloom for England, as it absolutely poured down with rain like stair rods for 20 minutes, and we all got saturated, but nobody cared because we were there to watch England. So yeah, fantastic. Great atmosphere all through, in Berlin, on the train going to Berlin, full of England fans, Berlin full of England fans. And apart from the odd boisterous guy who climbed a lamppost or what have you, never really saw any trouble. So proud of England fans. Long may it continue. Let's go one step further next time.
It just goes to show that whilst we're here for the football and the tournaments, it's not just about that. It's about the people you're with, the people you meet, about finding out about the history of where you are and the culture, mixing in with the local people. And just having a good time with everybody outside of the football. We've done lots of different things that I never thought we'd do when we were in Germany, like visiting Colditz, thank you, Colditz. We've been up Victory Tower today in Berlin. We've been down the river in Koblenz. And we've done lots of things that are nothing to do with the football, but just add to the trip and make it exciting and fun. And great to be with the people you're with.
Really was camaraderie at its best. Fantastic group of guys, and thanks to all of them for looking after me and my lad.
Well, there we go. Now, fantastic memories there of watching England in the Euros, and there was a brilliant new word. Did you notice it, you two, when young Dan, the youngster in our group, came out with the phrase, it was absolute limbs.
Absolute limbs.
Absolute limbs.
Limbs.
Arms and legs flying all over the place, in other words. It's a brilliant bit of a description, isn't it? Absolute limbs. So it's one of the modern words of today. So thanks for that, Dan. Brilliant. Limbs. Now then, keep your limbs together now for this, because we're going to talk about this month in Albion's history, and we'll start off 55 years ago. It's up your street, this one then, Bob. Back in August 1969, Colin Sugget made his Albion debut. You must have seen him play a few times. Somebody didn't quite reach his full potential.
No, he didn't. But I mean, he was involved in the infamous goal at Leeds, wasn't he? Because everybody thought he was the one that was offside and came back. But it's interesting as well, Norm, because he played in the Watney Cup final on the 7th of August, 1971. Yeah. And he scored. There was a game against Halifax, which was the semi-final, and that was played on the 4th of August. And there was a lot of controversy, I think, Dom. Was it the Halifax manager who said we kicked him off the park?
Suggo scored 2.
Yeah. And the best thing about it was the reporter who was doing it credited both Albion goals with Tony Brown when it was actually Colin Suggett.
It wasn't you, was it?
No, it weren't me. No. I wasn't working in Halifax at that time, no. But, yeah, I mean, I suppose in a way he falls in the same sort of category as David Mills, who came with a big reputation and never really came with it. I don't know.
Our first £100,000 player,
Yeah.
wasn't he? I thought he did quite well. He played in the League Cup final as well in 1970 for us.
Yeah.
He's a nice bloke, actually. We Snarker, we went up to see him in Sunderland, where he's still going strong and still racing his pigeons.
Yeah.
Proper northerner.
Yeah.
But I quite liked Suggo. I thought he was a decent
Oh,
player.
he was a decent. Yeah, he was a good player.
Yep. Right. 45 years ago, August 1979, an Albion played a game to celebrate something that was a year out. Remember, it was our centenary game.
Yeah.
August 79, and we played the Chinese, didn't we? Beat China 4-0. And everybody thought at that stage that it was the centenary date for Albion 1879.
It wasn't.
One of our regular guests on the programme here, Steve Carr, later found out that, of course, Albion had been formed in 1878. So that was a bit of a faux pas, although nobody knew it at the time, I don't think. But it was interesting to be able to play the Chinese, because Albion, of course, had been across to China earlier. So it was a big event for the Chinese to come to Britain, wasn't it? We beat them 4-0 on that day, and such was the importance of the game that BBC Two actually showed the second half live.
That's what they did.
Which was quite interesting. It was only a pre-season friendly,
Yeah.
of course. Do you remember being there?
Yeah.
I can't remember it, really.
I remember it, yeah. Wasn't a massive attendance, probably about 10,000, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was 45 years ago. 25 years ago, August 1999, here's a quiz question for you. Brian Little took over as manager from... Who did he take over from?
Oh,
Dennis Smith.
Dennis Smith. Now, neither of them, as it happened, turned out to be great shakes, did they?
no.
So Brian Little, I don't know, it's difficult to see which was the worst or which was the best, whichever terminology you use there, really. But Dennis Smith never really looked as though he'd got command of the players, did he? They seemed to do what they wanted, and Brian Little just couldn't get the best out of the players, could he?
No, he was always on to hiding to nothing, I think, coming from an ex-Villa player.
That's right, yeah.
Which certainly didn't help matters. Now, 20 years ago, August 2004, see how I worked that one out?
Mm.
Yep, one of our biggest ever transfers. We bought somebody from Arsenal with a very interesting Christian name. It was Carnu.
Carnu,
Yeah, the famous Carnu. So there's a lot of excitement at the time, if I recall, when he came, wasn't there?
Zoltan Giva tells a good story because he signed on the same day, and Zoltan said he was really excited about in front of the press and signing the contract. So he turned up, he got a new suit on and tie and everything. He said Carnu turned up in a beanie hat and shorts.
And didn't he score Carnu? Didn't he score one of the, or not score rather, one of the most amazing goals? It was against Portsmouth on the line, and
he was on the line and he missed it.
Yeah, and he somehow managed to clear it off the line, didn't he? Yeah, never forget that.
Was it Paul? I thought it was against Middlesbrough.
Oh, was it Middlesbrough?
I know
Anyway,
it seemed impossible.
It
not
seemed
to
impossible
score.
not to
It was
score.
a Ronnie Rosenthal type of miss, wasn't it?
Yeah,
You know, open goal, nothing in front
but
of
it was right on the line.
Yeah.
You must have had a few near misses in your football career, Billy, down at Swindon Town.
In what sense? In what sense? I can always remember. I always say that we were playing West Ham and they had West Ham reserves, and they must have had all the first team has been injured. And the bloke, our trainer, I can't remember what his name was. He says, "Can you look after that bloke?" And it was Clive Best. And he says, "What you got to do is you got to go and smack him to make sure he knows you're there the first time." So the first time he's coming through, and I'm motoring through, and I hit him, and I just bounced off him, and he just looked at me. So I was a piece of shite on the floor, and just walked off as if to say, "Try that again, mate." It was absolute mountain of a bloke.
It's quite a good judge of character as well, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, it was.
There we go. And finally in this section, 10 years ago, August 2014, Alan Irvine was the Albion manager at the start of the season. But
Father Ted.
he got sacked over the Christmas period.
His
And
father said, look a lot.
AFI, they call him.
then, of course, Tony Pulis came in and not the greatest of football, but he saved us, didn't he? And kept us in the Premiership and kept us going for a while.
I don't know. I think the players had a lot more to do with it than he did. But nevertheless.
Yeah. A couple of signings in that.
You mentioned some really good managers we've had in the Prem recently.
It's just summed us up quite well, really, didn't it?
Four of the worst, I think.
A couple of signings that we made in that August as well, 2014. Christian Gamboa was going to be a big star, wasn't he? We got him somewhere in Sweden, I think. He didn't exactly set the place alight, did he? And we had the Greek guy as well, Giorgio Samaros, that signed as well, and he flattered to deceive as well.
Played for Man City, haven't he, previously?
Yeah, so he was going to be a big thing for us, and that didn't happen either, did it?
No.
In fact, I think I've had enough about talking
about...
I mean... Albion's past
Albion's
history,
recruiting department looks really good, doesn't it?
Must have been something to do with the chip shop in West Bromwich, where they all had the dinner.
I think we'll move on. You're listening to the Throstle Club on Black Country Radio or Black Country Radio Extra, and the programme is also available later on my website, which is tntnews.co.uk, and you can also find us on all good podcast providers such as Spotify. This is the Throstle Club with Norman Bartlam and Bob Downing. Now, there's nobody that's more West Brom than our special studio guest today, who's Dean Walton, who's just brought out another book, which is part 2 of a series now called Born to be a Baggy, and this one is Born to be a Baggy Part 2, Still Boinging. So, Dean, tell us a bit about the book.
Well, it's a follow-on from my first one, really. The Born to be a Baggy Part 1, if you like, was first 50 years of following the Albion all up and down the country, around Europe, across the world. And this is picked up from where it left off, so this is pretty much the last 10 years, probably 9 years if I'm being precise, all about the trials and tribulations of following the Albion, not necessarily the games, more from the fans' perspective.
Yeah, I was going to say, there seems to be a lot of pictures of fans in pubs.
Including you, no.
Well, I admit I may be on one or two, and the ones that I'm not on are the photographs that I may have taken. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's all part of it for me, isn't it? And for you as well, of course, especially these days, sort of retired, and an away game is often 2 days. We'll have a mooch up on the morning of the game. A few beers, of course, which you need to watch the Albion. And then it's so nice not to have to rush back after the match, just to have a couple of drinks in the local town, mix with their fans, and have a good night, make a night of it.
It's a well-known saying, isn't it, quite often, that it's a good weekend ruined by the match.
Well, it is, isn't it?
Not always the case, of course.
How many times have we had to wrench ourselves out of a pub? I can think of Barnsley in particular, where we were quite comfortable in the afternoon, having a few beers, and it was horrible, the weather outside. It was cold and foggy and wet and freezing cold, wasn't it? Yeah, but we still had to force ourselves to the game.
So the book covers lots of away games in particular that are involved with the Albion, and there's a great picture on the front of the book with the Albion fans in Hong Kong, so that was a grand trip.
I think that's been the best pre-season ever, to be honest. I used to work in Hong Kong in the late 90s, so I knew it fairly well, and it was great to go back, and the camaraderie was just fantastic. There was probably a hardcore of about 20 of us, which went everywhere together, and the pubs, sightseeing to the games. And it was just a tremendous few days, and we were allowed to mix with the players as well, and really good memories from that one.
Yeah, on the back cover, it's not actually an Albion game as such, but with groups of Albion people. There's a picture of you there on the Great Wall of China.
Yeah, I do a lot for the Albion Foundation, and that was the first charity trek. Was the Great Wall of China a few years ago. Since then, I've done one to Machu Picchu, and we've got one coming up in October where we, including you, Norm, we're trekking across the desert to Petra in Jordan. So they're always good good breaks, I guess, to get away with like-minded people.
Indeed, and talking of like-minded people, again, not particularly a game, but the back cover has also got a picture of a group of folk in Spain.
Yeah, that's our Memorial Weekend, which we do in May every year, and I've done now for 10 years now, since good friend Richie Brentnell passed away. He had moved to Fuengirola in Spain. So we go over there to raise a few glasses for him. Since then, one of the lads who also used to come with us, Jeff Waters, he's sadly passed away during COVID. And so it's a double memorial now, if you like. And we go to the pubs the pair of them used to visit, and say a few words and remember them, and hopefully always will.
Yep, really important is that. Yep. There are a few non-Albion events in the book as well, where the Albion flag has been present. Of course, the Africa Cup of Nations is a good example. There's a great picture in the book of you holding a Baggies flag there in front of one of the stadiums.
Yeah, well, you'll now know you were with me in January. That's probably one of the best holidays I've ever had. 2 weeks in the Ivory Coast, watching how many games did we see? 10.
About 10 games
10
or
games,
so, yeah.
in the African Cup of Nations. You find yourself watching the fans more than the actual football. They're so colourful, and they just sing and dance the whole game, irrelevant of the result. And just the people out there were just so friendly and welcoming. Completely different to anywhere else I'd ever been, but certainly a memorable trip, and it only felt right to put it down in the book, because there was an Albion connection. Well, there's a couple of Albion connections, actually. Semi Ajayi played for Nigeria, so we went to watch him play. And then we even got an internal flight to San Pedro to watch Grady Diangana play for DR Congo, even though he didn't play.
Actually play that day. But the Semi AJ one was interesting, because I got the big Albion flag out on one of the buses there, didn't I? And the locals were very curious and twigged the Nigeria fans, Semi AJ, recognised the Albion bit and started singing to us. About the Englishmen coming over to support Semi AJ, and the whole buzz was chanting West Bromwich Albion. It was fantastic.
They knew us because of Peter Odd and Wingy as well.
Yes.
And who was the other one?
Can't think of another one at the moment.
Oh, Carnu.
Of course, Carnu, we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so they knew of West Brom anyway. And they were fantastic, weren't they? Completely different atmosphere from the first game. We went to watch Ivory Coast play, and it was mayhem basically, and it was 60,000 people there, and just absolute chaos. But then the next day, the same stadium, Nigeria game, and it was totally different and very, very welcoming and friendly.
Fantastic experiences, and it's great to get photographs of them. There's so many photographs in this book, isn't there?
Well, I tried to mix it up. There's still a lot of words in there as well, but I think putting the photos alongside the words helps. So
there's a few big words in here as well, Bob,
so
if you need any help...
That'd be no good of them. I don't do big words.
Can't remember those.
No. Dean, on your travels and what have you, you've obviously been to a lot of football grounds. Are there any grounds that you visited that we no longer about?
Oh, loads. Well, of course, there's loads even back here, isn't there? Highbury and Main Road, and
that's right.
The list is endless, really.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the thing where like teams like Bury, they're still going, but are no longer in the football league, and
them as well.
Was it Southport as well?
Yeah, I never saw the Albion play at Southport. I saw us play at Bury.
Yeah, but I certainly remember Bury, that very cold League Cup.
In the fog,
yeah, in the fog, yeah. Oh, that was a night, that was.
We lost.
Yeah. But I mean, it's interesting. You've seen now all the stadiums coming. They seem a lot of the stadiums now being built. Have got no character.
No, give me the old school grounds any day. That's why I quite like going up to Scotland. We regularly, well, not so much these days, but we did go up, and it's like going back in time. Some of the old grounds there, the old terraces, and I'm a bit of a traditionalist, to be honest. I like the old. open terraces, pine above,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
What about the old stand at Wigan? Was it Springfield Park, was it?
Yeah.
And at one side, it looked as though it was leaning over and was
Yeah,
about to
yeah.
collapse at any stage. And the away end was a grass bank, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I remember being there a couple of times as well. There's stacks of grounds that's no longer in existence, which we used to go to. Probably, I'm guessing, league grounds. Probably about 30 must have gone now, compared to where we started following the Albion away.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is as well, I mean, at one stage, I mean, when I first started going to Albion, all the fans mixed together. There was no such thing as segregation.
Yeah, mid-60s I started. I don't remember much, but no, there wasn't a lot of segregation, because I remember walking around, watching the second half on the Smethwick end sometimes.
Yeah,
Walking around the Rainbow Paddock and
that's
from
right,
the
yeah.
Bromley Road to the Smethwick end. So,
Yeah.
them early memories, not much segregation going on.
No.
Yep. So it's a fantastic collection of photographs in here as well. Some of them are pre-season games as well. You've been looking at a few pre-season. quirky
Yes, I
things,
have.
haven't you, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, I got interested because, Albion have had, a few games this season, practice games this season behind closed doors, and I can't really see the point of that. And then there was the Birmingham City game that was supposed to be behind closed doors, and then they decided to open it to season ticket holders, and a lot of the Albion season ticket holders would probably regretted that it will be behind closed doors. But, I mean, I've been looking at some, I mean, there was, just going back to 71, the Watney Cup. Albion played Wrexham in the round one. These are July. I mean, the Texaco Cup was played during the season when he first came, and then it went sort of, I think, for the season. 74, I think it went into August, and then Albion, that day they played Birmingham and drew 0-0. They beat Norwich 5-1. They lost 2-1 to Peterborough, and we're out because you've got to finish top of the group, and we hadn't finished top of the group. The Watney Cup was another one that came as a tournament in such where you were invited, and I think it was for the teams who'd scored the most goals in divisions 1, 2, 3 and 4. So there's only 4 of them. But they hadn't qualified for Europe. So Albion went into that, and would you believe it, we reached the final, and it was on the 7th of August. So it's in August, right? We drew 4-4, and then we lost on penalties to Colchester. And it's interesting, the team that day, I mean, it just shows, I mean, the pre-season games so far, we've had a mixture of first-team players and academy players. That final team, of which Jeff Hassel scored 2, Cantello and Suggett. It was Jimmy Coombs, Lyndon Hughes, Ray Wilson, Len Cantello, John Weil, John Kay, Colin Suggett, Tony Brown, Jeff Astle, Bobby Hope, Asa Hartford.
We lost on penalties.
And we lost on
And we signed their goalkeeper afterwards, Graham Smith.
Of course.
Oh,
yes,
of course
I
we did,
remember that. Yeah.
It was absolutely
Yeah.
hopeless.
Yeah.
He was just brilliant. on the
Actually,
day.
he was better when he was working for Lecoq Sportif, wasn't he? He got some really good strips. But, and then they had this Anglo-Scottish Cup where they invited 2 teams from England and 2 teams from Scotland, and we took part in that. That was when John Osborne was in goal. That was in 75. Couple of things. The 2 I remember were friendlies. They were in a competition, and it was. One was in Hajduk Split. We went to Hajduk Split because if you remember, at that time, Ron Atkinson was thinking about signing Dražan Mužinić.
Yeah, played in a friendly at Swindon.
That's right. And then he was supposed to play we thought he went over to Hajduk Split for a tournament. And this is when you're using your first team players. Everything was all so geared up. Atkinson knew exactly what his team was going to be. And then he didn't play, and then I never saw him again.
He loved the friendly Atkinson. Atkinson played friendlies and
Oh, well,
testimonials all the time, didn't he?
And then there was the other one when we went to La Coruna in Spain, and that was just after we'd sold Laurie Cunningham to Real Madrid. Because I remember going out there and interviewing Brendan saying, "How do you stop Laurie Cunningham?" And he said, "I've got a plan, but I'm not saying what it is." And he never told me. But Albion didn't. The idea was Albion would play Real Madrid in the final. Real Madrid got to the final, but the Albion didn't. So we had a third and fourth division match against Grasshoppers of Zurich, and we lost that as well. But it was, the way the friendlies now. I mean, now it's all seems to be behind closed doors, and I don't really see the point of that.
Going back to the Texaco Cup, Bob, a bit of a funny story. When I was a kid and we were playing in the Texaco Cup, I had a paper round. Anyway, Texaco at the time gave stickers out, and it was a standard sticker, and it was Albion to win the Texaco Cup. But you could also get Wolves to win the Texaco Cup. Anyway, there was Green Lane in Great Bar, where I was born and grew up. I was doing my paper round, and I used to keep walking past this car which had Wolves to win the Texaco Cup across the back windscreen. So one morning when I'm doing my paper round, I carefully put Albion to win the Texaco Cup right across the same sticker on the back of his car, and it was there for about a week, because I guess looking in his rearview mirror he wouldn't even notice. He'd still see Wolves, and every time I walk past, oh yes, still there.
Another interesting one, just a last quickie. Now, I don't remember this, and this was in '95, and it was in the was it the Anglo-Italian, or something like that? Yeah, and Albion reached the area final of this against Port Vale. How it became Anglo-Italian, we were Port Vale. But the goalkeeper for the final, both legs, was Nigel Spink.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember that.
Oh yeah, played for Albion, had a good season with it.
Yeah, one of our oldest players ever.
Another pre-season tournament on the in the Isle of Man. He was our keeper there. I remember him training on the beach.
Yeah. Now the Anglo-Italian tournament is something I'd like to see come back, because from a fan's point of view, the away games that you could actually go to, we've got Fiorentina and of course Brescia, which is often mentioned about the
internationally as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it'd be fantastic if that were to come back.
Or the Anglo-Scottish, in fairness, that'd always be a good one, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Just while we're still on the question of the books and Dean's book, another one that's recently come out is called Tartan Throttles, and it's book 2. I've got book 1 and book 2. It's by Robert Bradley and Douglas Gorman, and the insight into that is absolutely incredible. Absolutely, it's every Scottish player that's played for Albion's first team, irrespective of where they've gone after. I mean, even if they played one game. And interestingly as well, there were a lot of players that older Albion fans will remember who didn't quite get into the Albion first team, but they still get a mention in this book. And one of them was Jim Alton.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, who played for Manchester United. He was transferred from Albion to Shrewsbury without playing in the first team. And then Harry Gregg was manager of Shrewsbury, wasn't he? And he told Manchester United about him. And the next thing you know, he's one of the cult figures on Manchester United, because 6'2", eyes are blue, big Jim Alton's after you. And there's so many of it. There's others. I mean, I know quite a few. Hughie McLean, Hughie Reid, Asa Hartford obviously is in there. But there's a picture of Alistair Robertson, and when I showed it to him, he couldn't believe it. It was taken when he was as a schoolboy international. So where the hell they got that picture from, I don't know. But they're well worth it. I mean, you can only get it through lulu.com, and you get it within a few days. If you go onto lulu.com, onto their website, you'll see it. It's Tartan Throttles Volume 1, Tartan Throttles Volume 2, but they really are good books.
That's nice to give it a shout out to Lulu, isn't it?
Hey, you see what's coming, can't you, Dean?
I think I may have used that one before. Anyway, let's move on now. And we mentioned Shakespeare earlier on.
No, not team managers.
Which gives us a great idea for some names of players.
Hamlet.
And even though you lot are scornful of this little segment, we've actually had some fan mail. And one of our listeners, Barry Marsh, writes, "Hi Norman, I know you like your team names. Well, here's 2 teams for you. A match between West Bromwich Albion authors and writers and West Bromwich Albion artists." So, bearing in mind the Shakespeare link, I think we'll have a look at the writers' team. And these are some of the things that he's put in. So we've got Joe Reeder, of course, could be the Albion captain that day. Who would the goalkeeper be? Famous author. Look Back in Anger.
Osborne.
John Osborne, wasn't he? John Osborne. Yeah, Look Back in Anger, or Look Back in Amber, as they say in Hull. or maybe look back in Umber if you jump off the bridge, I suppose. Then we've also got Graham, 1968.
Tennessee Williams.
Graham Tennessee Williams, of course. We had an Alan Dickens, didn't we?
We did.
So there's always great expectations with him, but that was about it, I think. And then, of course,
You have to put up with this on the trips, don't you?
Take the headphones.
what about Beatrix?
Potter.
Yeah, Beatrix Graham Potter, of course.
And Ray.
And Ray Potter, of course.
Ron.
Yeah, and
Ron.
and Ron. The whole thing's going to Potter, I think. Then we've got Edgar Wallace, which is an interesting one. What about Jane Austen? Charlie
Austin.
Austin. There was a bit of sense there from some of it. Not much sensibility though, I suppose. Now this is an interesting one. Do you know what Derek Kevin's middle name was? I had to look this one up because Barry told me this. I looked it up. It's actually Tennyson. Which I didn't realise that. Yeah. So we've got Derek Alfred Lord Tennyson Kevin, I suppose we could have, couldn't we, on that? The old Charge of the Light Brigade guy. Yeah, so it was Derek Tennyson Kevin, which is the tank with the different version there, isn't it? Then we've got George Laurie Lee.
George, yeah.
Ada. Alice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland.
Mad Hatter.
Bill-
We've had a few of them.
Yeah, Lewis.
Carroll.
Lewis Andy Carroll. Lewis Andy
Carroll.
Carroll. Mary Ann Evans. What was her real name?
Mary Ann Evans.
Sorry, that was her real name. She was known as George
Elliot.
Who was
The
Albion's
goalkeeper.
goalkeeper? Elliot.
Morris.
Elliot Morris. Very good. 1, 2 to finish off with. You'll be disappointed about this. Where the Eagles Dare.
McLean.
Yeah, Alistair McLean.
Yeah,
And of course, we've got James
Owen
McLean.
James.
Yeah.
So spelt slightly differently,
Yeah.
I suppose. And the last one, Charlotte.
Bronte.
So the Albion connection, not Charlotte Bronte, but Charlotte. Chris. Bronte. Charlotte Bronte.
Oh, dear.
Right, I think we need to let people know what the station is.
This is the Throstle Club with Norman Bartlam and Bob Downing.
And now the moment, Billy, you've been waiting for. Guess what? It's the
quiz
quiz of the
time.
week.
Okay.
Right, it's not
Come
from
on, Bob.
It's not from Norwich,
Hey,
but we've got the knowledge. So it's Bob versus Dean. Just shout out the answers. And Billy, I want you to do these scores properly this week. Because it's alleged that you've been cheating on the scores in weeks gone by.
There might be a technical hitch on Dean's mic in a minute. To just switch it off. Okay, here we go.
Right,
then.
10 questions we've got today.
Oh,
Hopefully
God.
if we
Ooh.
get time to do all 10. Here we go. So shout out the answers. In August 2000, who was Albion's new captain signed for Rangers?
Derek McGuinness.
Derek McInnes. Good. Number 2, in August 2006, who scored twice on his debut at Hull? A good-hearted player.
Ooh.
Hearts.
Dean, don't get this. So it's a bonus to Bob.
Hart.
John Hartson.
John Hartson.
Oh, I think Bob was in there, was he? There's a bit of mouthing going on there from the skipper.
Right, number 3. Who thought, excuse me, in August 1979, on that game that we were talking about, which could have been a centenary game, which Dutch side did we play? Ajax. Bob's in there. Number 4. In August 1994, it was announced that Tony Hale would take over as the new chairman at the AGM, replacing
Trevor Summers.
What you been on, Bob?
Right, Bob's away. Number 5, listen carefully. August 1997 saw Lee Hughes make his debut in a 3-2 win
Crewe
at
Alexander.
which ground?
Crewe, Gresty Road.
Gresty Roads, good.
Yes, well done.
Number 6. Albion played their first ever fixture in the Premier League, losing against Manchester United in front of a crowd of over 67,000 people in August of which year?
2000.
Close.
One.
Two.
2002.
Who got that, Bob? Was that Bob?
Brilliant football knowledge there. I think you should have a bonus for his football knowledge there. Don't
Who's
you
that,
think?
Bob?
Number 7.
Come on, Dean.
Oh,
In August of 2008, West Bromwich Albion broke their transfer record by buying which player from Real Mallorca in Spain?
Maresca.
No.
no, it wasn't
no.
Maresca. God, who did we sign from Mallorca?
V is his surname.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
No, it was him. It was him, wasn't it?
Bald-headed guy.
Yeah.
Half a point for a
is it
bald-headed guy.
half a point for a bald-headed
His
guy.
debut was at Hartlepool in the League Cup.
Half a point for that, maybe. Go on.
Oh, what's his name?
His first name was Borgia
Valero.
Valero, correct.
I'll give him half because he's had 1.5 altogether.
So,
All right.
what's the scores on the doors?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to Bob and 1, 2, 3.5 to Dean.
Oh, very close. 2 to go.
2 to go.
3 to go, rather. Number 8.
3 to go.
In August 1955, Derek Kevan made his Albion debut against Everton, which Albion defender also made his debut that day.
Morris Setters.
Bob?
Stan Jones.
No. Much more well known now.
Graham Williams.
Joe Kennedy. No, it wouldn't be Joe Kennedy.
He went on to
Don Howe.
become out. Don Howe.
Don
Howe.
Howe.
Oof.
This is your era.
This is
Oh,
close.
no. Blimey.
So half a point in
Sweaty
it now,
now.
isn't that?
Yeah,
2
4.5 a point in it.
Right. Now,
2 to go.
August 1977, Cyril Regis made his debut in the League Cup against Rotherham.
Yeah.
Ooh.
He's half a point in the league, Bob.
Half a point in the lead.
Last
so
question.
1 question to go. Bobby Robson left West Bromwich Albion to go back to his old club, Fulham, in August of which year?
58.
60.
No, it was later, wasn't it? 62.
62.
Oh, Bob.
I got half a point because I helped him because I said 60s.
So the scores on the
The
doors.
scores on the door. Oh, sorry, give it to him. So I'm going to give him half a point. I'll give him half. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. And we got 1, 2, 3.5, 4.5, 5. Oh, 6.5. Dean's the winner.
Oh,
well done.
So there we
I got
go.
your 50s and 60s questions as well.
Very close there.
Did you all right now, Bob?
Yeah, no.
Obviously,
no,
that
no.
trip to Sandwell Hospital did you all right there.
Yeah. For a pity, they did me head, but they couldn't find a brain.
Not bad at all. So there we go. Just a bit of fun there on things that have happened in August of this year. We've only got a couple of minutes left now, I think,
You've
haven't we,
got
Billy?
Probably
So-
4 minutes.
Wow,
something like
4 minutes.
Yeah.
What can we say in 4 minutes that sums everything up that we've been talking about? This book of yours, then, how do people get hold of it?
Yeah,
then,
it's probably easier if they just send me an email. DinoTheBaggy@gmail.com.
DinoTheBaggy@gmail.com.
Yeah, and I'll get it in the post to you the next day. And you'll also see me outside turnstiles at various away games, and probably outside the Astor gates before the Leeds game.
Yeah, no, I know mainly we're a nostalgia programme, of course, but just imagine we're 10 years ahead now, looking back to this month in history. How do you think we're going to do for the season?
Well, I probably will be here.
Well, it's been almost as cheerful as it was at the start of the programme now, I think. So this is the Bob Downing Memorial Programme.
Predictions.
How we're going to
then for
look
the
back
season.
in 10 years?
Predictions.
I think it might be maybe the start of the rebuild that took probably 2 or 3 years to complete.
Yeah, I should say we're recording this right at the beginning of August, so way before the end of the transfer deadline. So we've got a few hopes that a few players
I
might
think
come in.
a lot of it, it's been said before, a lot of it will depend on this season, because I think this is the only time you can really judge Carlos Corberan, because this will be his team. He won't have inherited players that he probably didn't like or didn't fancy or didn't think could do the job. He'll be bringing in players that, or hopefully, Albion will be bringing in players that can do the job that he wants to be done. So we can just see from that. But I honestly think it's going to, with the way it is at the moment with football, I'm afraid that it could be in 2 or 3 seasons before we're back in the land of plenty.
What gets me is that quite a few fans still don't understand the implications of the fair play rules and the amount of money that can be spent. And there's lots of criticism about Albion not spending, but of course we just
if you ain't got the money, you can't spend it.
Do it.
You're not allowed to.
Well, we're not allowed to. That's the point, isn't it? Which is one of the reasons why a lot of these players have been offloaded, of course.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. So your thoughts, Dean?
On this season.
Well, that sums it up quite well, I think.
I think my heart.
A lot of drinking in a lot of pubs.
And another book.
And another book.
That's one thing for certain. No, I think heart tells me pushing for playoffs, but my head tells me probably mid-table, I think. Because I went to Blues on Saturday and it's not looking very promising.
Really?
Yeah. You see, what I can't understand, Dean, we've just been sort of, the pre-season games, they went on tournaments and it was like the full first team squad going out. I can't see the point in having even if it's behind closed doors, of having one team start the first half and a completely different team playing the second half. I can't see the logic in that.
No, I think you should gradually fine-tune it so your last 2 or 3 friendlies should be your first team. Yeah. But with the transfer window now, which I think ought to close as soon as the season starts, personally, because we'll probably have a completely unrecognisable team in September to what starts at QPR.
Yeah.
Which is nonsense, really.
Yeah. I mean, it makes a complete full mockery of all the. Well, I don't think there's any one comes out now about the Rothman. It used to be the Rothmans.
Yeah.
And it's now Sky Sports, or I think, or something like that. That they got the team. They got all these teams. But you look at it and you think, well, he ain't there anymore. And he ain't there anymore.
Yeah. Indeed. Anyway, we could talk at length about that and also about the transfer window and whether that's a good idea or not as well. But that's about all we've got time for in this programme. Next time we'll be talking about Graham Williams. It's the 70th anniversary of him joining the Albion in September. And Dean and myself and a couple of others are working on a book which is available from Curtis Sports. So go onto the Curtis Sports website to have a look and find out a little bit about that book, which is called The Skipper. But more than that next month. But for now, Dean, thanks very much for coming in.
Enjoyed
to you,
it.
Bob, as well. And
Okay,
Billy,
Norm,
you've
thanks.
enjoyed yourself as well, I suppose.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Sitting there in the corner quietly for most of the time, but not all of the time. But it's nice to let you off your leash a
We'll
little.
sign off now. We can
little
open a
bit.
bottle of
So,
wine.
so there we are. Thanks very much for listening to this edition of the Throstle Club.
Live from the Black Country, online, on your mobile,